Have you ever wondered why some men build empires, while others spend their lives trying to pay the bills? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not inheritance. It's what you do while the rest of the world is still asleep. I discovered this with my feet on the sidewalk, long before I made any fortune in steel. As a boy, I was up at 5:30 every morning. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. I walked 3 miles to start a shift as a messenger while the city was still shrouded in silence and cold. And it was in that silence that I began to hear clearly the only voice that really mattered. The voice of discipline. Do you want to change your life? Start with the first 2 hours of your day. When you wake up before the world, you take ownership of time. And whoever controls time controls the game. The man who gets up early learns to master his own spirit before the chaos of external demands takes over. This man prepares his mind, feeds his body, sets goals, and when the others finally wake up, he is already 2 steps ahead. Waking up early is not just a productivity technique, it is an act of personal leadership. It is a silent declaration to the universe that you are ready to take charge of your existence. When I opened my first accounting books as a young man, I already knew that those who start early finish ahead. Every minute in the morning is worth 3 in the afternoon. Because in the morning, your mind has not yet been contaminated by the urgencies of others, by other people's doubts, by the pressures of the world. It's just you and your purpose. A sacred territory that belongs only to those who have the courage to inhabit it. You may even think, but Carnegie, I'm not a morning person. Nonsense. That's conditioning. The modern world has trained you to believe that productivity is about flexible schedules, that success can be achieved with shortcuts. But I'm going to tell you a truth that no one else wants to shout from the rooftops. The great wealth builders don't follow the crowd, they lead in silence, while the crowd is still dreaming. It was during those early mornings that I learned to think clearly. Watching the men who also got up early, I understood that there was a pattern among those who win. Men who, before dawn, had already read something valuable, visualized their goals, and strengthened their bodies. This is not a coincidence. It's strategy. My rise from telegraphs to railroad tracks was paved in early mornings of quiet work, where my ideas were not disturbed by outside noise. If I had followed the rhythm of others, I would have been just another slave to the clock. But I learned to bend it, because the clock does not rule the determined man. It bends to him. Most people complain about not having time. They wake up late, rush around aimlessly, and are sucked into a routine they didn't choose. And why? Because they surrendered the first hours of the day to laziness. Do you want to change that? Start tomorrow. Set your alarm clock an hour earlier. Not to check your cell phone. Not to answer emails. But to be with yourself, with your mission. Get up, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what would a man destined for greatness do right now? When you start acting with that kind of clarity and intention, something changes. The universe begins to respond. Opportunities arise. The right people show up. Decisions become simpler. Because you've started operating on a higher level. And that scares those who live on autopilot. But it also inspires them. And a leader, before leading others, must lead himself. It wasn't steel that made me a billionaire. It was the habit of turning time into gold. And the purest, most valuable, most overlooked time is the morning. You can lose everything. Money, position, influence, but no one can take away your power to start the day at full strength. That's when you plant the seeds of excellence. When I built Carnegie Steel, I didn't wake up late to manage crises. I was already awake before they arose. I had already thought of solutions before problems arrived. That's not luck. It's mental engineering. It's preparation. It's focus. And it starts with the simple but powerful act of getting out of bed before sunrise. You don't have to like it. You need to understand what it represents. A radical break with mediocrity. A break with the culture of excuses. When you wake up early, you declare war on your weak self, on your lazy self. You look in the mirror and say, Today, I'm in charge. And more than that, you set an example. Your children watch. Your partners notice. Your employees feel it. Because discipline is contagious. Leadership is visible. The modern world is hungry for real role models, and it all starts with your presence, not on Instagram, but on the battlefield of real life, before the world wakes up. Just imagine a year of mornings well spent, 365 battles, won before 8 a.m. Can you see what that would do for your business, your health, your mind? I can, because that's exactly how I built my empire, brick by brick, habit by habit, and the first one was always waking up early. You may think that's small, that it's too basic, but I tell you, the pillars of a castle are always hidden beneath the surface. It is in the invisible that the visible is decided. It is when no one is looking that the true champion is forged. While many try to build fortunes betting on the next fad, the next app, the next stroke of luck, I propose something much simpler, but infinitely more powerful. Build the habit of getting up with the day. Train your mind to function like an execution machine, and then see how the world responds. You will realize something that no one has ever told you. Waking up early is like discovering a secret door to a dimension where time obeys you, not the other way around. A dimension where clarity reigns, where you don't react but create, where you don't chase but attract, where you don't justify yourself, you just execute. And when you master this space, you will hold the key to everything. Business, leadership, family, wealth. Because the man who masters his morning masters his destiny. The rest is details. You may even think that waking up early is just a productivity trick, one technique among many. But I tell you, it is a declaration of war, not against the world outside, but against the forces that want to keep you small inside. Because before any external construction, there is an internal empire that needs to be built. And it starts every day with the first decision you make when the alarm clock rings. The bed is comfortable, the blanket is seductive, and your mind whispers, 5 more minutes. But those 5 minutes are costly. They cost you your word to yourself. They cost you your personal authority. They cost you your confidence. Waking up early is an act of daily reinvention. It's your chance to prove, once again, that you're in control. Because if you don't master your own body when you wake up, you'll be mastered by life for the rest of the day. You see, when discipline comes in the door, doubt goes out the window. And discipline is not something you inherit. It is something you decide. Waking up before the world is training in inner command. And that command is the root of all prosperity. Because there is no sustainable wealth without self-control. Money can come by luck. But empires are only born in the hands of those who govern themselves. When I was young, there was no motivation, no lectures, no inspirational videos. There was cold, fatigue, and miles on foot. And yet, I got up. Why? Because the alternative was failure. Because I already knew that no one was coming to rescue me. And that gave me a strength that no man can give. The strength to not depend on anyone else to do what needs to be done. Waking up early is a daily exercise in responsibility. You are telling your brain, we don't follow feelings, we follow decisions. And that simple reversal changes everything. Because the man who follows feelings lives on an emotional roller coaster. But the man who follows principles builds tracks. And trains of prosperity only run on well-laid tracks. There is something that few understand. The first battle of the day defines all the others. Did you lose to your pillow? You will lose to procrastination. You will lose to fear. You will lose to problems. Did you win that battle? The others will retreat. Because your brain recognizes who is in charge. This is the psychological origin of waking up early. It is much more than a physical ritual, it is an exercise in identity. You are saying to yourself, I am a man of mission, not excuses. I act, even when I don't feel like it, because my mission does not depend on my mood. It depends on my decision. How many people do you know who say they want to change their lives but can't wake up an hour earlier? This is no coincidence, it's a pattern. The same mind that postpones waking up postpones projects. The same mind that seeks comfort instead of movement also shies away from the risks necessary for growth. If you want to change your life, start by changing your relationship with your morning, because that is where the mirror of your discipline lies. And discipline is what turns desire into reality. Many desire, few execute. And those who execute almost always started by executing early. That's how I rebuilt my career, day after day. And look, it's not about waking up early out of vanity or because it's trendy. It's because there's a kind of clarity that only comes in the silence of the early hours. A clear mind, without interference, without comparisons, without notifications. A mind that thinks clearly and sees far. It is in this environment that big decisions are made. It is not when your schedule is full, when problems come knocking at your door. It is when everything is quiet. It is when you are alone, face to face with your inner commitments. It is when the true leader reveals himself. That is why, if you feel that your life is stuck today, that your plans are not moving forward, look at your morning. It is the thermometer. It is there that you will realize whether you are acting as a creator or a victim, whether you are leading your journey or being carried away by events. And I'll tell you more, waking up early heals. It heals mental confusion. It heals feelings of helplessness. It heals anxiety, because it sets you in motion, and motion generates clarity. Clarity generates power. Power generates action. And action, my friend, transforms everything. Many men live in cycles of frustration because they have never experienced the power of waking up with a plan. They get up at the last minute, rush around, stress out, react to the world. They never create. They always respond. They are always behind. And how can they lead a company, a family, a team, if they can't even lead their own morning? Waking up early is the first step in building an empire. The second, make that decision a sacred ritual. Get up with a purpose. Do something for yourself before you do anything for anyone else. I did this with reading, with visualizing my goals, with preparation. While others were still yawning, I was already planting the seeds for the day. If you ask me what set me apart, I won't say intelligence, network, or luck. I'll say focus and rhythm. And rhythm begins with the dawn. The modern world wants you to believe that you can have it all without sacrifice, that you can achieve extraordinary results with ordinary habits. But you can't. Legacy builders have always been men of non-negotiable rituals, and waking up is the first of them. This is where I challenge you. Tomorrow, when your alarm clock rings, listen to the voice of your future. It will whisper, "Get up. Your empire is waiting." But it will not be built by a man who sleeps while others lay bricks. Now, if you've made it this far, it's because something inside you has already awakened. So tell me, what is the first battle you need to win tomorrow morning? The one that, if won, will make everything else fall into place. Share your answer, because recognizing that battle is the first step to winning it. If you look closely at the men and women who shape the world today, who build digital empires, who scale companies to billions, who impact crowds with ideas, you will see a clear pattern. They started their day long before you did. And I'm not talking about ordinary people. I'm talking about leaders like Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, who starts his day at 3:45 a.m. of Dwayne Johnson, who is at the gym at 4 a.m. to prepare not only his body but his spirit for execution, of Oprah Winfrey, who starts her day with silence, reading, and inner alignment before any external noise manifests itself. But this isn't new. It's timeless. It's the modern application of an eternal principle. The same principle that moved me to walk 3 miles at dawn when I didn't have a penny in my pocket. Because the world may change, but the law of sowing remains. Those who plant first, reap first. And those who cultivate their morning reap a lifetime. Waking up early is no longer just about discipline. Today, it's also about strategic advantage. In a world saturated with distractions, the morning offers the rare privilege of focus. While the rest of the planet is still numb from the inertia of sleep, you can operate with clarity, silence, and power. You can create, you can plan, you can execute, and that cycle repeated over weeks, months, years, transforms any ordinary trajectory into an extraordinary one. Look at any impactful biography, you'll see the same script. The Olympic champion who trains before sunrise. The investor who reads reports while the city is still asleep. The entrepreneur who clearly defines their day before opening the first notification. And why? Because they understand that time cannot be gained. Time is earned. Do you want to know what I did in the mornings when I was already running million-dollar operations? I analyzed people, while others were still deciding what to wear. I already knew who to promote, who to replace, what strategic decisions to make. And that was only possible because my mornings gave me space to think deeply, to think clearly, to think like a builder, not a survivor. If you want sustainable prosperity, you need to understand this. Wealth is a reflection of decisions, and quality decisions only come from a heightened state of mind. This state is not born in chaos, it is born in ritual. It is born in internal order, and order is achieved early, before the world tries to invade your mind. Starting now, you can establish a morning ritual that reflects your future empire. It doesn't have to be complicated. It needs to be powerful. Take, for example, what great leaders do. They wake up at a set time because it regulates the brain and imposes command. They avoid any contact with distractions in the first few minutes, no cell phones, social media, or news. They connect with their purpose, whether through meditation, prayer, or visualizing their goals. They move their bodies because a lazy mind does not inhabit an alert body. They feed their minds with valuable content, reading, taking notes, reviewing goals. They plan their day with brutal clarity, because confusion is the opposite of leadership. If you follow this for 30 days, your perception of yourself will change. And when your identity changes, everything changes. You stop negotiating with laziness, you stop delaying your projects. You stop living as a hostage to improvisation. Because now you have a shield. Your morning routine. And don't think this is just for entrepreneurs. The employee who wants a promotion. The mother who wants to raise her children with more patience. The young person who dreams of starting a business. Everyone benefits from this power. Because whoever wins the morning wins the day. And whoever wins consecutive days wins life. Now imagine the opposite. A life where every morning is given over to chaos. Waking up in a rush, eating anything, leaving late, reacting to everything, living in defense mode. What does that build? Anxiety, frustration, lack of clarity, a constant feeling of being behind, of being in debt. That's how you slowly kill a dream. Not with grand failures, but with subtle bad habits. You need to understand that your habits are the invisible workers in your construction. And the most important one starts when everyone else is still asleep. This worker, called waking up early, not only starts the work, it sets the standard. If it works well, the others follow. If it fails, chaos reigns on the construction site. That's why today I'm giving you a code, a practical plan, an elite decision. Choose a fixed time. Eliminate snoozing. Prepare your ritual the night before. Define what you will do in the first 30 minutes. It could be reading 5 pages of a book, writing down 3 goals for the day, doing 10 minutes of deep breathing. It doesn't matter how big or small. What matters is the intention and the repetition. And when you do this for days in a row, something new will emerge. Self-esteem, because you start to trust yourself. You start to feel like you're in control. And that feeling, that confidence, is what fuels the great leader. They don't need to be the most talented. They need to be the most consistent, and consistency is born in the morning ritual. Now, you may be thinking, Carnegie, I've never been an early riser. Well, here's the truth. Most of those who have succeeded in life weren't either. They became one. They decided. They paid the price, and today they reap the rewards. You can become one of them. You can start tomorrow. Better yet, you can start today by preparing for tomorrow, because waking up early starts the night before. With intention, with preparation, with focus. What's more, it's not about waking up at 5 in the morning. It's about being up before the world tries to buy you with distractions. It can be at 6. It can be at 7. But let it be with purpose. Let it be with leadership. Let it be with identity. Because this world already has too many alarm clocks. What it needs is men who are awake. There is a fatal mistake that most people make, and few have the courage to admit, believing that productivity is a matter of random schedules, not mental patterns. Many say they work better at night, that the silence of the early morning inspires them, but what they don't realize is that this nighttime silence is a reflection of imbalance, because the man who rules his own life does not need to wait for the world to fall silent before he acts. He starts the day in control, and therefore does not end the day in collapse. Waking up late is more than a habit. It is an internal language that says, the world pushes me, and I react. It is a symptom of a mind that has not yet chosen to be the cause that lives as an effect. When you start the day late, you don't just lose time, you lose authority, and life begins to treat you the way you treat yourself, with neglect. Morning procrastination is the silent cradle of mediocrity, and it always disguises itself as plausible excuses. I worked late. My body needs rest. I'll make up for it later. But I ask you, how many times has that later arrived? How many opportunities have been lost because you weren't present when you should have been in action? Most people don't realize that waking up late sabotages the building of empires in a sneaky way. It's not a dramatic blow. It's a constant leak. You start your day running. You don't eat right. You don't think clearly. You forget appointments. You react instead of planning. And at the end of the day, you feel like you haven't done anything important, even though you've been busy the whole time. This is a form of modern slavery. Being busy without being productive. Being active without moving forward. And it all starts with a single, repeated choice: to surrender your morning. If you want to change your life, you must first reclaim ownership of the first hours of the day. They are not negotiable. They are sacred. They determine whether you will be an intentional leader or just another member of the herd. When I see talented men living below their potential, I almost always find the same pattern. They sleep late, wake up late, live in imbalance, and then they wonder why their ideas don't materialize, why their plans don't get off the ground, why life always seems to be behind schedule. The answer is in the mirror, every day, in the early hours. You need to understand there is a natural order of productivity. The morning was created to be the fertile ground for focus, strategy, and structured action. When you reverse this, you pay the price, not only in fatigue, but in your ability to lead, to decide, to execute with excellence. It is during the morning that performance hormones are at their peak, that the brain is clearer, more organized, that distractions have not yet taken over. But, instead of exploiting this moment, like a general organizing his troops before battle, many waste it like a drunk soldier who has lost track of time. This is the truth that no one wants to face. The illusion of nighttime productivity is the emotional shield of those who are afraid of disciplining themselves. It is more comfortable to say that you work better at night than to admit that you don't have the structure to start your day early. But comfort has never built empires. And every leader worth their salt trades comfort for consistency. Waking up early isn't about being strict, it's about being free. Because true power isn't in doing what you want, but in doing what is necessary. And that starts with the decision to open your eyes when the world is still asleep. That's when you take ownership of your day, and, by extension, your destiny. How many empires died before they were born because their builders overslept? How many projects never left the drawing board because the executor slept in? How many leaders never woke up because they never decided to get out of bed before mediocrity? Now listen carefully. The body follows the mind, and the mind follows the pattern you reinforce every day. When you start waking up early, you're not just changing your clock, you're reprogramming your identity. You're saying to yourself, I am the kind of man who keeps his promises. And that simple statement changes everything. You start acting differently, talking differently, walking differently, deciding differently. Because now, instead of hiding in the night, you show up in full force at dawn. Your presence begins to be noticed. Your energy begins to be felt. And doors begin to open, not by magic, but by alignment. Remember, the universe respects those who act with consistency. And the first act of consistency is waking up. Those who wake up early are saying, I'm ready, I'm committed, I'm present. And that presence carries weight. It has value, it has magnetism. Opportunities are attracted to this kind of vibration. Not by empty promises, but by solid, repeated, non-negotiable actions. You don't have to become a monk. You don't have to give up everything. You just need to decide that the first hours of your day will be untouchable. That you will protect this territory as if it were a gold safe. Because it is. It is where you decide whether you will be a slave or a master. Whether you will be a reaction or a creation. Whether you will be just another or the only one. And never forget, the eyes of the modern world are addicted to appearances. But the eyes of real life are fixed on the essence. And the essence of an empire begins with what no one sees. In the decisions you make when the alarm clock rings and no one is looking, that's when your story is truly written. Not when you sign the contract. Not when you step onto the stage. But when, in absolute silence, you decide to win another morning. And that invisible victory, repeated daily, creates a cycle of visible victories that no one can dispute. You got here because something inside you has already awakened. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't chance. It was the call. The call from your deepest consciousness, telling you that it's time. Time to stop surviving. Time to build something that will last beyond your lifetime. Time to take complete control of your story. And it starts, as it always has, in the morning. You see, my friend, no one is born ready. Not even me. When I arrived, in this country, I had only a few coins and an unknown name. But I had something that no man could steal. My ability to decide how I would start each day. And I decided that I would start by winning. Even if I was cold. Even if I was sleepy. Even without guarantees. Because the man who wins his morning wins himself. And that is worth more than any gold. While many wait for motivation, I was shaped by decision. And I want you to understand this with brutal clarity. The world does not reward the smartest. It rewards the most consistent, the most present, the most prepared. And preparation begins before the noise. It begins in the dark. It begins when the alarm clock rings and you choose to get up, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Throughout my life, I have met brilliant men who have done nothing. Why? Because they never learned to master their own time. They were always reacting, always running after something, always claiming a lack of opportunity. But I ask you, what opportunity could flourish in a field occupied by laziness? None. Do you want more out of life? Then demand more from yourself. Start at the bottom. Start in the morning. And don't expect to understand everything. Just decide. Because clarity comes with movement. Progress reveals the path. And the path, my friend, is already in front of you. Just walk. I am living proof that the impossible is just a good-looking excuse. That poverty does not define destiny. That lack of education does not limit vision. But I am also proof that none of this matters if you don't act. If you don't decide, if you don't wake up to the beauty of discipline, to the glory of self-control. to the power of starting early, starting consciously, starting with presence, starting like a king who rules his own kingdom, because that's what you are, even if you don't see it yet. And kings, my friend, don't sleep when the kingdom needs direction. Imagine your legacy, 20, 30 years from now. What will your children see in you? A man who let the days shape him, or a man who shaped the days with his own hands? What will your grandchildren hear about your story, that you tried, or that you built? Your morning is your laboratory of greatness. That's where you formulate, refine, execute. That's where you separate yourself from the masses and get closer to the masters. Because, no matter what they say, the world still bows down to those who walk with direction when everyone else is standing still. And don't think you need to be motivated every day. I wasn't. No great man is. But he acts anyway. Because it's not about emotion. It's about mission. And a real mission requires sacrifice. It requires repetition. It requires you to get up when your body asks for bed. It requires you to go when your mind asks for a break. And that demand, contrary to what it seems, does not oppress you. It frees you. You think sleeping is freedom. But sleeping too much is prison. A prison without bars, but one that prevents you from seeing the horizon. True freedom lies in action, in control, in the firmness of your decisions, and you build that firmness every time you say, "Today, I'm getting up early. Today, I'm getting ahead of the chaos. Today, I'm creating." Every empire begins with an invisible decision. I made my decision early, literally early. When I was nothing, I already acted like someone who respects themselves, like someone who honors time, like someone who understands that every minute lost in the morning is costly at night. And that's what I want you to take away from this mentoring. Not just inspiration, but action, decision, clarity. Because this world doesn't need more dreamers, it needs doers. Men who wake up before the sun, men who execute while others plan, men who lead by example, not by speech. If you follow what I have taught you here, you will discover a new level of strength, a new way of looking at life. You will stop running away from responsibilities and start taking them on with honor. Because only those who lead themselves can lead a business, a family, a generation. And the beauty of it all is that it starts with something simple. It starts with waking up. But not just any wake-up call, a conscious wake-up call. Intentional, ritualistic. A wake-up call that tells the universe, I am ready. Today is mine. My time. My action. My legacy. Now, if that message touched your spirit as I believe it did, then share it with other builders. Help more men and women awaken. Help this chain of morning leaders multiply. Because the world needs us. It needs builders, founders, awakened people. And if you're not yet part of our community, join us, because here, there's no room for excuses. Here, there's only room for growth, truth, and fulfillment. Sign up, share this video, and, above all, take action. Because your empire begins tomorrow, before the sun rises. And you already know that. Now go. And wake up, not just from sleep, but to your